समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Try as we might, we will not find another contiguous region in the world where about 2 billion people, 200 crore people vote and value democracy. And they vote regularly now. Not in the Americas, not in Africa. Europe doesn't have the numbers in terms of population. And most of Eastern Asia has the 1.4 billion Chinese communist overhang. Something obviously makes the Indian subcontinent different. All of the region's nations, from the Maldives, way south in the Indian Ocean, through Sri Lanka, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Pakistan, have regular elections now. Of course, the quality of democracy varies, let's say, from Pakistan at the lowest rung to India. It isn't my case that Indian democracy is perfect, every democracy is flawed, nor am I making a comparison by way of a value judgment. Rating democracies is a tricky business. I'm only using the simple metric of who's had the most peaceful, stable, normal political transitions and continuity. India has had the most of it, barring the 19-month aberration of the emergency that delayed an election by about a year. Pakistan we rate as the lowest on this scale, as it discovered elections more than 25 years after its creation in 1973. Somebody might quibble saying there was an election in 1970, but that didn't count because that election was rejected. That election was won by the quote-unquote wrong side, that is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and his party in East Pakistan. Even since 1973, Pakistan has never had an elected prime minister complete a full term. It has always ceded much ground to the army and invented its own hybrid arrangement. It has also had many full military interregnums for long periods fairly recently, such as General Musharraf from 1999 to 2008. Yet, people keep voting in that country. People continue voting, so they have faith in the vote and they have faith in democracy, irrespective of the knowledge that even after an election, a selected government could be put in place. They do come out to vote. Look elsewhere now. In a tiny, ultra-stable Himalayan monarchy like Bhutan, the king has been far-sighted enough to hold regular elections and pass much power onto the Prime Minister and the cabinet so installed. Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Maldives, listed in the order of their population size, have all been having elections and stable, peaceful transitions. Nowhere has the dreaded A word, A for army, cropped up. Not even in Bangladesh for 3 decades now, despite its history of 2 military dictatorships, including one that was called Zia. In fact, it's now his son, Tariq Rahman, who's now serving as an elected prime minister. Commitment to elected democracy, therefore, is well established among 1/4 of humankind, that is 2 billion people or 200 crore people living in one geographically cohesive subcontinent, and this is not the richest part of the world. This is, in fact, among the poorest. If anything, in all countries except Pakistan, the army has proved to be a force for good, backstopping stability for fresh elections and transition, even when an established government was swept away dramatically by a furious street protest. In the past 4 years, we've seen this play out among 3 of these neighbors. Sri Lanka's Mahinda Rajapaksa fell first, then Sheikh Hasina Wajid in Bangladesh, and finally KP Oli or Khadga Prasad Sharma Oli in Nepal. All 3 after what looked like an almighty disruption on the street to rival the Arab Spring. All of these countries did not collapse into anarchy. They sprang back on their feet, held clean, peaceful elections and elected popular leaders with wide majority. In each case, in fact, young leaders with wide majority. Two of these, Sri Lanka and Nepal, in the process also discovered new political parties. There was anger with the system. It's just that it became a fury against the established political party instead. They are all the same, equally bad, complicit, सब मिले हुए हैं, as we heard during the Anna movement days. The answer was never a new non-constitutional force or a new constitution, but a new political party. Nepal is the latest. Over 2 dramatic days between 8 and 9 September in 2025, the Oli government fell, and amid speculation on what the army might do, it did nothing. It just maintained order. So a transitional government under a respected Chief Justice, Nepal's first woman Chief Justice, in fact, Sushila Karki, was set up with the solitary agenda of holding a peaceful and fair election soon. She delivered it within 6 months and allowed all parties to contest freely. The results were a spectacular rejection of all those between whom 15 prime ministerships had changed hands since the beginning of democracy, also the end of monarchy, and a republican constitution between, say, 2006 and 2008. This marked the end of the Maoist power in Nepal. Now, with a shade less than 10% or 16 out of the 65 directly elected MPs, they've been swept away. The Maoists have been swept away to the garbage heap of democratic history in Nepal. The new leader, who's the new leader? Balendra Shah, just 35, and not in the job because he's the offspring son of a famous parent, a structural engineering MTech from Belagavi's Vishwesvaraya Technological University in Karnataka. He was merely a rapper who became a humongous cult figure with his lyrics reflecting popular frustrations against corruption, lousy governance, desperate outward migration, and quality of life. The party he joined, Rashtriya Swatantra Party, was a new one. It was launched in 2022 by journalist Rabi Labichen and has now won one short of a 2/3 majority in the House. At this moment, it even looks ideology-free, although it calls itself centrist. The nutcraft or the nub of the story is a complete trust in the constitution, democratic process, and the fact that all key institutions from the Supreme Court, presidency, the election commission, and the army stayed intact and retained their stature and respect. This among a very poor population in terms of per capita incomes. The nutcraft of the story is a complete trust in the constitution, democratic process, and the fact that all key institutions from the Supreme Court, presidency, the election commission, and the army stayed intact and retained their stature and respect. Bangladesh played out just a little bit earlier and had its variations. The supposed caretaker government under Muhammad Yunus did not quite act like one and pretended as if it was fully mandated to make policy shifts, including many reversals. It was the army chief who nudged Yunus back into reality. The election was far from ideal, as one major party, the Awami League, the former incumbent, they were banned. However, the election finally was peaceful, way more peaceful than any we remember in our own West Bengal. And Tariq Rahman, 60, won a 2/3 majority. Almost immediately, we've seen some return to sanity in Bangladesh. The anti-India rhetoric also, and also the activity are both down. Conversations are re-established between the two countries, and the new government is looking at Bangladesh's future rather than grievances, national or personal, of the past. Bangladesh's democracy has emerged stronger, even if the Awami League ban remains a blot. Sri Lanka, before that, went through a longer but remarkably calm process. Initially, while the rest of the Rajapaksa family left, Gotabaya, as president, appointed the old UNP, which is United National Party stalwart Ranil Wickremesinghe, as prime minister. 2 months later, the popular protest called Aragalaya, the struggle, also threw Gotabaya out, and Wickremesinghe was made president. This when his party had only one MP. The secret ballot in the national parliament. At that point, people said he'll be thrown out. How can somebody be president with just one MP? There was a secret ballot held in parliament, national parliament, which voted to continue with Wickremesinghe. Why? Because they had faith in their constitution, democracy, and a shared commitment to stability in the national interest. The election was held entirely peacefully in November 2024 when Anurag Kumara Dissanayake again 57, quite young by political standards, a committed communist and formerly from the JVP or Janata Vimukti Perumana, which was once considered a terrorist organization and violently suppressed and destroyed. He swept all the established parties aside to win a 2/3 majority. To this extent, this was a pattern of rejecting all legacy parties that Nepal followed after Sri Lanka. The only difference being that one gave a landslide to the hard left in Sri Lanka and the other, Nepal, rejected the hard left sweepingly. Maldives has had peaceful electoral transitions since 2008, although the odd incoming leader may have jailed his predecessor. We told you there is no such thing as a perfect democracy. Earlier on, we listed Pakistan among these democracies, and that's only because the country is now going through its longest continuous phases of elected governments. It's had many phases before, but this is the longest so far, such as they might be, whatever the quality of these elected governments. Within Pakistan's hybrid history, the current arrangement has produced the weakest government and it has conspired with the army to mutilate their constitution. So here is the question. How come, while all the others in the subcontinent have seen their democracy mature and strengthen, Pakistan has slipped back? The answer, may I say, is in the way each has imagined its nationalism. Pakistan is exceptional in that it's still fighting to justify the two-nation theory. It is this fixation that never allowed any institution except the army to build moral stature. Happens when you define yourselves ideologically as a national security state. The Pakistan predicament is existential. Existential not in the sense that the word is commonly used these days. There is existential threat to me, not like that, but in the sense closer to the original philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Why do I exist and how do I exist? Therein lies the difference between the quality of its democracy and the rest of the subcontinent's 2 billion.